the main thing is I feel I was lucky enough to be blessed with a good support system in the form of my teachers, my family, my friends, and I always feel that stress management is something that's very important, something that can make or break your performance. And I thankfully was lucky enough to have a good support system which did not make me feel the stress or feel like there was a lot at stake.
Well, not the kind of opening you were expecting, right? But kaha tha na humne aapse that today's episode is going to be different. Well, here we are. Hi everyone, welcome to Chamomile Tea with Toppers and initiated by Unacademy. I'm Fiona. And here, we are on a racetrack today. Aap ye soch rahe hoge that why on a racetrack? Well, there are a lot of life lessons and also lessons for your preparation that you can actually get on a racetrack. Ab iske bare mein aur I'll tell you as the episode progresses, but what's Chamomile Tea with Toppers without a topper? So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our topper for today, जिन्होंने कुछ ऐसा किया है इस बार, which I'm sure all of you must be knowing his name till now. Well, he's none other than the Neet All India Rank 1, and today we have him here. He'll be joining us shortly in an entry which I'm sure you've not seen in any of the episodes till now. So everyone, let's welcome together Mrinal Kutteri, shall we? Wow, so Mrinal, that was a great entry. I think आज तक हमारे CTwT में ऐसा entry नहीं हुआ है. How are you feeling? Are you feeling excited for this?
Yeah, as such, I mean, go-karting is one of my favorite things to do. So as such, I'm feeling very much at home here. Thank you.
Chalo, great. I am happy that you're feeling at home because that's exactly what we want all our toppers to feel. So, my first question to even begin, because this track is here, you came in very smoothly. There were a lot of learners who've actually sent us questions on our community that they wanted to know from you. And one question which is that, how do you manage to stay so calm, cool, relaxed? I think in the entire preparation phase, I'm sure, because there must have been a lot of times when you want to give up, you want to break down. But how have you maintained, that calm and, just being focused? And how is it even now?
As for during preparation time, I feel the main thing is I feel I was lucky enough to be blessed with a good support system in the form of my teachers, my family, my friends, and I always feel that stress management is something that's very important, something that can make or break your performance. And I thankfully was lucky enough to have a good support system which did not make me feel the stress or feel like there was a lot at stake. I mean, if you think about it, it's a big exam, there's a lot that you stand to gain or lose, but thankfully no one allowed that to play on my mind all the time, because I'm pretty sure if it did, I would not have been able to do my best. So that was one thing, I had a good support system. Secondly, I feel that with the practice I had done and the number of practice tests I had written, along with that a little bit of confidence and self-assuredness comes by itself. Like, it's an automatic process. You start thinking, you have written so many tests, like what possibly could be new in your final exam that will unsettle you, that will rattle you over there. So I think these two things together help me stay calm and focused during my preparation time. And also the fact that this is a phase of life. I mean, it's 2 years of preparation, and after that I get to, if all goes well, I'll get to go to the college I want, pursue the course I want. So these were the things that kept me going mostly.
Actually, I think one thing which I've noticed, I did end up seeing a few interviews that you've already given, and एक चीज़ I think जो most of the people say about you is that you seem to be so calm, composed, and way before your age, you know, which I can clearly see right now. You have such sorted answers आपके हर question के लिए. So one thing जो मुझे आपसे जानना है, ठीक है, आपके लिए आपने हमें बताया you had a good support system which helps. आपने हमें ये भी बताया कि the practice and the number of questions that you had actually completed gave you that confidence.
Right.
So these again, learners, these are obviously 2 pointers जो definitely Mrinal का है, जो आप भी आप खुद के लिए भी you can follow. But Mrinal, if you had to tell all the other aspirants who are now preparing for this exam, right? What could be probably 3 things which can also help them focus, especially, and also stay motivated in this entire phase?
Write a lot of mock tests, practice tests as far as possible, and as far as possible keep them offline, like write with your OMR and a physical question paper rather than doing it online. I mean, for the majority of my 12th grade, I wrote my papers online, and I was starting to see a little of the ill effects of that towards the end, so I shifted back to an offline mode as far as possible. So as far as possible, write them offline. My second point, which in some ways is a continuation of my first point, is that don't write question papers and mock tests only from the viewpoint of benchmarking yourself. I mean, you are not writing those tests for the sole purpose of scoring marks. I mean, I remember I myself felt this a few times, and I've seen people who face this, is that if they don't feel prepared for the exam, they don't want to write the exam because they think I'm going to score poorly, it's going to demotivate me. Instead of doing that, I'll prepare now and I'll write the exams later. So that first thing, that's basically another form of procrastination. You're leaving it for the end, and at the end you will not have enough time to write them all. And secondly, don't write papers just for the purpose of scoring well. There is so much more knowledge, there is so much more important experience and skills that you can develop by writing exams, irrespective of your preparation level, like how to manage stress during the exam, how to manage time during the exam, how to deal with questions that you weren't familiar with, like how do you approach them, at what point do you know that it's time to move on. There are so many of these things that you can only learn from writing mock tests. I mean, people can give you advice on what you're supposed to do, but at the end of the day, it's going to vary a little for different people. Time management, exam writing strategy, this is all quite subjective and individualistic. So these are things that you can only develop by writing tests. So my one suggestion would be write as many tests as possible, irrespective of your preparation level. And if you feel unprepared going into the exam, don't focus on your marks. Just go there to get the experience and see where you're lacking. And the third thing is, I would suggest to try and solve questions of a level higher than Neet, because I remember the initial tests that I wrote at my coaching institute, they were of a level higher than Neet. It used to be based on the material that they used to provide rather than NCERT. And I have wondered so many times, why are we writing this? Because it didn't feel relevant. It felt like a waste of time, to be honest. But then later on, I realized the advantages of this, in the sense that it gives you confidence, it gives you far more understanding and clarity of your concepts than solving basic Neet level questions can provide.
Great. So these were not 1 but 3 things that Mrinal suggests and advises. So make sure to try to inculcate this for yourself. So Mrinal, one thing जो मुझे लगता है आपके सारे पॉइंटर्स में, एंड फ्रॉम द बिगनिंग जो आप कह भी रहे हो, आप कह रहे हो कि questions, solving these questions have been an integral part in your preparation. And I think that's where we come to our next question from our learners, is that ideally how many questions were you solving, probably if you can tell me at the beginning of your preparation and till the end of your preparation, and what would be a good average for all the other aspirants to also continue on a daily basis?
This is again a subjective thing. Like the books I used to follow, especially in 11th, I used to solve the material which was provided by my institute. I didn't buy too many other reference books. I had solved MTG, which is an NCERT based book, in 12th for biology and chemistry, but for the most part I only solved NCERT and Akash. And a lot of other people have solved so many other reference books. Like this, I'm sure everyone must have heard at some point, you should solve DC Pandey, H.C. Verma, which are like high level reference books. And I have tried those, and they do have questions which require a high level of concept clarity. So if I had solved them, I'm sure it would have been of great use. But the thing is, you need to solve questions until you feel confident with your concepts, which can be from any books. Confidence is something that comes from practice. So basically, all you need is books with good level of questions and with reliable answers. That is all you need. And it's not like I practiced every subject every day. I did not do that. In 11th, I used to focus on physics a lot because I went for offline classes, and there physics, solving physics problems was a very samuhik thing in our class. Like during study hours, the 3-4 of us would gather, and almost every question was done with discussion. But after I came to 12th, when I realized that my physics was okay, but my theoretical aspects like biology and organic chemistry, those were weak, I started focusing on that. So it's really all about, being honest with yourself, realizing where you're strong and where you're lacking, and working on that. So as far as solving questions is concerned, just keep doing it till you're confident. Because once you're confident, once you feel like you have gained the ability of problem solving, then that's the right point. That's when you'll know you're on the right track. That's what I feel. There's no particular number as such that I can give.
Okay, फिर भी like if you just have to give a rough average, how many were you solving?
When you're learning a chapter for the first time, then it needs to be a little higher. Maybe the chapter that you're learning every day, if you can do 25-30 questions for whatever is the current topic, and later on when you're revising, by that time you should have gained the ability of problem solving, so you can do a little lesser, 15-20, just so that you don't lose the habit. And these are ballpark figures, and it's not like I had an exact number, but I think this should be enough.
Amazing. So that's your number for you learners, and just like Mrinal mentioned, you need to be on the right track. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Mrinal go ahead, and I'm just going to follow him to the next destination. So Mrinal, can we have our motors running, please? Well, change of location, guys. So Mrinal, now coming back to a very important question. मैं आपसे ये जानना चाहती हूँ कि आपने, I did see that the reason that you wanted to prepare for MBBS initially was because आपको एक आर्मी डॉक्टर बनना था.
Right.
But अब मुझे ये बताइए कि exactly when did you start preparing for this exam? Which class you were in, and if you can tell me that तब से लेके till the final day, when you were in 12, when you were just ready to give the exam, what was the number of hours you were putting in every day and the output you were getting in terms of कितना आप complete कर पा रहे थे? So I just want to see the change or the progress that happens.
So मैंने नीट की तैयारी first 11th में शुरू की थी. I had thought about becoming a doctor when I was in around 9th, I suppose, but I started preparation only in 11th. And 11th offline classes the, so I had longer hours. Obviously my coaching and all used to be from 9:30 in the morning to 5:30, I suppose, with a few study hours thrown here and there, and again couple of hours after going home, so maybe 2 hours if I could put in after getting back home. And 12th online ho gayi sab. So I had 5 hours of online classes approximately in the afternoon time, and couple of hours in the morning, couple of hours later in the day. So the main difference between 11th and 12th, and this happened primarily because I belong to that hybrid generation who had offline for 1 year and online for 1 year. So what happened was, in 11th I had less time for self-study. And in 11th, that's I think that's fine, because that's where you're studying topics for the first time. तो वहाँ पर थोड़ा time चाहिए होता है to get your basics right. You need that extra tuition hours, that teaching hours and all. Personally, I felt it helped a lot. When I came to 12th, I felt like I needed more time to study by myself. So for that, online classes were almost a perfect solution, because class hours were reduced, commute time was reduced, तो काफ़ी टाइम था घर पे स्पेंड करने के लिए, खुद से पढ़ने के लिए. सो आई गेस both years around 5 hours of classes, 4 to 5 hours of self study kind of used to be my schedule. And in 11th I used to study very slowly, like in the sense you're learning things for the first time, so in terms of chapter space काफ़ी slow होता है. Maybe 1 or 2 chapters a day. मुझे याद है मतलब fortnightly tests होते थे. Every 2 weeks we had one test, and the syllabus used to be only like maybe 2 or 3 chapters per subject, and we had 14 days and less chapters than subjects, but I was still scrambling till the end to finish the syllabus in time. But when I came to 12th, you know, when I had to do 11th and 12th both for my exams, I was able to do that properly. So I remember on an average I used to target doing around 2 to 3 lessons a day in 12th, because एक बार तो पढ़ लिया है, अब तो बस revision है kind of thing. And in 11th, if I could finish one chapter completely and do a little of the next chapter, I used to consider that a productive day. So that way 11th, it used to take a lot of time to absorb all the concepts. So you know, that way in terms of number of chapters it was slow, but I didn't really get, you know, I didn't panic seeing that, क्योंकि जब कुछ पहली बार पढ़ रहे हो तो obviously time लगेगा. You need to be patient, you need to be forgiving if you make mistakes, and you know, be ready to put in that extra time per chapter. When it comes to 12th, it becomes easier. So that's how it was.
So tell me this, although you said that 12th में जब आप आ जाते हो it becomes easier, but for a lot of our learners, the ones who have sent in the messages also, उनका ये कहना होता है कि probably in 11 you end up having some backlogs, you know, so and that clearing that out becomes a challenge. तो 12 में जब आपको बैकलॉग करना है, 11 का रिविजन करना है, प्लस 12 का सिलेबस खत्म करना है, then it becomes very important how you divide your time between all of this.
Right.
So if you could give us a little bit understanding कि अगर आपके backlogs थे या नहीं, I don't know if you can reveal that too, and also tell us that in a situation like this, how could you know, an aspirant break up his or her time?
Coming from 11th to 12th, I didn't exactly have backlogs. I mean, the backlogs I used to have, and this is, I think, a more or less common problem, is that, you know, in class they're teaching one thing, but for the exam you have to write the syllabus is thoda piche ka, what was taught maybe a month ago or a couple of weeks ago. So that kind of backlogs I had, but moving from 11th to 12th, I didn't have anything left over per se. But one thing, this is what I did, so I would suggest people to try this out, is that at least in the beginning, don't try to do 12th and 11th simultaneously. When 12th syllabus was being taught in class, I did not touch 11th grade books. I didn't look at them. I gave all my time and put in all my effort for getting my 12th right, because 11th you've at least done it once, and obviously quite a few things you'll forget. It's a year's time. You're bound to forget some things, but still, if you put in the time during 11th, if there are any basic fundamental concepts to be understood, chances are you will still remember that. It's only those, you know, rather volatile topics that you'll have to revise couple of times more to, you know, to ensure that you can retain it, but the basic fundamentals are already there. So, but for 12th it's not, because you're studying that for the first time. So don't, especially in the beginning of 12th, don't get stressed out thinking 11th also I have to revise and 12th also I have to manage. What I would say is focus on 12th, get done with that, give it the time that it deserves, and then once 12th syllabus is done, you feel somewhat confident with that, then you can go on to revise 11th and 12th. From there, it's up to you, you can revise it together. But one thing I would suggest is when you're doing 12th for the first time, don't look at 11th. The course is designed in such a way that you're going to have enough time for revision even after completion of 12th. So you don't need to worry about 11th while you're learning 12th for the first time.
That's a really different approach, Mrinal, jo aap bata rahe ho, because till date, whoever toppers that I have met, they've always mentioned to me ki usually in class 12 also, they used to split their day into 12's preparation and 11's revision. तो आप ये बता रहे हो, as per you, what you felt was, जब 12 का आप नई, first time पढ़ रहे हो, then you should just be focusing on that and not touch your 11 even for revision. Right?
Yeah,
because you will have enough time. That's what you did.
Right.
That's what you're saying. Correct. So, अब अगर आप थोड़ा सा, if you can just chalk it out for us, कि you said आपने 11 से तैयारी शुरू की, and it was a 2-year preparation.
Right.
So, if you can just break it to us that month-wise में, that when you started, by when did you finish your 11th syllabus? फिर आप 12 में कब move किए? When did you finish your 12th syllabus? And when did you start your 11th revision again? Just with months, so that थोड़ा सा all the other aspirants can also just place it in the timeline.
So again, this plan, let me just clarify, it was not created by me. If I had created my plan, it would have stretched on for much longer. But this was an institute laid out plan where I started my coaching in April 2019. way earlier than I would have liked, to be honest. But April 2019 is when it started, and I don't remember exactly, but it was either December 2019 or maybe Jan 2020 when we finished our 11th class syllabus. And almost immediately after that, we did 12th like for 1 month. For maybe 1 month our teachers started 12th portion, and after that we shifted focus back to 11th because we had subjective exams coming up and whatnot. Then around March or April 2020 again is when we started 12th syllabus again, this time through online coaching, and our syllabus was done by around September 2020. So this is what I meant, like, at least where I studied, the schedule was laid out in such a manner. September 2020 we finished 12th. We wrote our exam in September 2021. There was this a whole year left, and that's more than enough time for you to revise 11th and 12th as many times as you want. So that's what I meant by, I felt comfortable enough focusing on 12th. So even in my case, I had a year. Even if you have only like 8 months or 9 months, you can still make it work. So if you feel like you can make that kind of time at the end, then give that time, like give your day to 12th. I personally don't see anything wrong with that. And so by September 2020, we were done with 12th, and after that I shifted, then, kind of both ways. Since I'd just done 12th, I shifted focus back to 11th. We had some, every 2 days, one small test of 15-20 questions kind of thing, where we, that is when I started revising 11th first and then 12th, and then though it was about doing it together only. But until September 2020, I was focusing like almost only on 12th. If you feel like you have the time and you have that sort of mental capacity to do both at one time, it's great. It will help you, maybe your revision workload is less later on. But if you feel like it's difficult to manage, but you know that you are going to have sufficient time for it later, personally, I don't see anything wrong with giving that time to 12th. That's what I feel.
Great. तो जैसे कि मैंने कहा मृणाल, आई थिंक यू आर द फर्स्ट टॉपर हु आई एम सीकिंग टू हु सेड दिस कि जब वो 12th में थे, वो सिर्फ 12th की तैयारी कर रहे थे. Once you finished, and you very rightly said that there is enough time left for you to re-revise 11. And I think एक चीज़ जो I remember when I was speaking to Eliza, she did tell that बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स इन 12 ऐसे भी होते हैं जहाँ पे there is references from 11.
Right.
So revision आपकी चलती ही रहती है.
That is there. Like if at any point you feel like you need to revise something in 11th to understand 12th, please go ahead with that. That's actually important. But as such, for the sake of purpose of revising 11th, I don't think it's required. But to understand 12th, if you have to revise 11th, here actually I remember I had one advantage. Organic chemistry is something that, if I'm being honest, you can't differentiate the chapters into 11th and 12th. It's all one cohesive whole. It's one subject. You can't look at it separately for 11th and 12th. So what we had done was, organic chemistry actually in both years comes last, like at the very end of the textbook. So we did it towards the end of our course in 11th. But then our teacher, what he did was, he decided to start with organic chemistry of 12th. So that way, since organic chemistry of 11th was still fresh in our minds, we didn't feel that much need to revise it. Like once in a while, if any of those small points which are easy to forget, that we revise. But in general, it was still fresh in our memory. But if you're learning it towards the end, then it is important that you revise 11th organic chemistry for the purpose of understanding 12th. So that way, yes, revision, directly or indirectly, one way or another, thoda bahut to ho jayega. But yeah, it's not, you don't have to force yourself to do it if you don't feel it's required now.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question, which is again from one of our learners. They are asking that when did you, complete your entire revision at least once of the entire syllabus, and then by the end of the actual attempting the exam, आपने कितनी बार complete revision किया of the entire syllabus?
Institute provided जो material थी, मैंने actually I have read it quite a few times, काफ़ी बार पढ़ी है, क्योंकि maybe around twice or maybe thrice, some chapters 4 times, like if it was difficult, क्योंकि हमारी जो टेस्ट थी वो more or less उसी के basis पे आती थी. In the beginning, like 11th and the first half of 12th, most of our tests were based on that more than NCERT. So मैं वहीं पढ़ता जाता था, तो तीन बार तो हो गया होगा, I suppose. मतलब I didn't keep count, I didn't do that tally marking thing or anything, but I think I must have done it those many times. And so after 12th syllabus was done in September, we had this sort of those mini test series like 15 20 questions per subject kind of thing. तो वो 3 महीने कुछ लगे, and I wouldn't say I had completely revised 11th and 12th in 3 months, because it was getting a little difficult to cope up with it. So I had almost done it, and whatever was left after that, I moved on to it later. So the test schedule, the part-wise tests, they were designed in such a way that I guess every 3-4 months एक round हो जाता था. तो इन द बिगिनिंग मैंने मॉड्यूल मतलब इंस्टीट्यूट प्रोवाइडेड मटेरियल पे फोकस किया, उसके बाद आई शिफ्टेड फोकस टू एनसीईआरटी. तो बाय द टाइम द एग्जाम केम अराउंड आई वुड हैव रेड द इंस्टीट्यूट मटेरियल 3-4 times I suppose, and NCERT twice for sure, all chapters, and thrice or 4 times for chapters which I felt were not important, the ones which I found difficult, which I felt were easy to forget. Those I remember. Some chapters I must have read many times, but on an average 2 or 3 times. That's all.
So that brings me to the next question, because I think with all of this, another very important part comes into your note making. You have notes and you have your short notes.
Right.
So another question again from one of our viewers is that how would you create your notes and your short notes? And also while you were making the notes, there's a biome especially, there's so much, right? So the question was that, is it that you take in almost all the important points, or how would you spot what exactly do you want to point down?
नोट्स मैं मेंटेन करता था, इन द सेंस क्लास में जो पढ़ाते ब्लैक बोर्ड पे लिखते हैं वो मैं कॉपी डाउन करता था, द सेम वे फर्स्ट ग्रेडर और सेकंड ग्रेडर वुड डू. बट एज फार एज शॉर्ट नोट्स आर कंसर्न, इट्स अ ग्रेट हैबिट. मुझे याद है मैंने एक्चुअली शॉर्ट नोट्स मेंटेन करने की हैबिट एग्जाम के 3-4 महीने पहले शुरू की थी, एंड बाय दैट टाइम आई डिडंट हैव इनफ टाइम टू डू दैट फॉर द होल सिलेबस. सो आई डिड दैट फॉर अबाउट हाफ ऑफ 11th grade syllabus, and I was seeing benefits. It was very helpful. I was able to remember better. I was able to revise quickly. There was so many benefits to gain from that, but I didn't have the time to do that for the entire syllabus. So I do feel like if I had started that habit, at least in the first half of 12th, like say if I had started in September 2020 when I was trying to revise my 11th and 12th for the first time, if I had started then, my entire revision process would have been far simpler, and I would have been able to revise more times towards the end. But it's a habit I took up too late, to be honest. And as for how to make notes, this is a fear that we all suffer from, I guess, at least I did, that you don't want to miss out anything. You are afraid कि ये जो point मैं अभी छोड़ने वाला हूँ, अगर यही exam में आ गया तो क्या करूँगा. Then I'll always have this as a regret कि वो अगर एक extra point लिख लेता तो शायद और marks आ जाते, kind of thing. So what I would say is the important topics which are there, more often than not, what happens is when the topic is being taught for the first time, or when you're revising that topic for an exam, it is stressed so much by your teachers, and maybe you yourself have given so much time to that you remember it. You are confident that that's something you can remember. If there are any important topics which you're still not confident with, please note it down. But otherwise, if there's something you feel has already been ingrained into your memory, and you can just revising it when you're reading the whole chapter, which maybe once in a while, if you feel that's enough, that's okay. You don't have to have it in your short notes just because it's important. Short notes are meant for quick revisions to avoid forgetting those things which you tend to forget. There are some topics which are hard for you and some topics which are easy. So don't try and write everything because you want to keep it comprehensive. You need to understand, and when you read the chapter, you'll get a sense of that. What are the things in this which you tend to forget? Like if you do this कि आज एक चैप्टर पढ़ा, 3-4 दिन बाद अगर फिर से चैप्टर देखोगे तो कुछ चीज़ें याद आएंगी, कुछ चीज़ें याद नहीं आएंगी. That's a natural thing. So that way you'll understand what are the things you tend to forget. So short notes में वो चीज़ें लिखो, वो चीज़ jot down करो जो आसानी से भूल जाते हो. Don't write everything for the purpose of comprehensiveness. That defeats the purpose, to be honest. So write what you tend to forget. That's the basic point. Don't look for comprehensiveness, which is why I never understood the concept of sharing short notes, to be honest, because you write in the short notes what you want to revise. It may not necessarily be what someone else needs to revise. So keep your notes personalized. Let it play to your strengths and weaknesses. That's what I'd say.
So then if you really because you said that it was later that you realized that short notes is so helpful, and that's probably one of the mistake you think you had made. You should have started off earlier.
Right.
So note making and short note making, what's the difference, if you had to put a difference between the two?
Note making, at least what I consider note making, is when the chapter is being taught in class and you jot down what's being written on the blackboard or what the teacher highlights is important. So notes are supposed to be comprehensive, I guess. Like you're supposed to have in that the important topics, you're supposed to have in that those extra points which maybe your teacher said but it's not there in your course material. So that is note making for me, noting down all important things plus maybe the extra information which is not there in the book, which is going beyond the scope of the book but can help you out. I mean, if they're telling it to you, it's probably for a good reason. So that is note making for me. Short notes is about after having read all your, having done your syllabus once and maybe after revising it once. After that also you realize that there are some things which you can remember, some things which you can forget. So short notes is about noting down those things which you tend to forget, so that is there for quick reference. For me, that's the difference. So notes I maintained, like in class when it was being taught, I noted it down. But short notes thoda late shuru kiya tha, which is a regret, to be honest.
Okay. So, since we're talking on regrets, is there any other mistake which you think during preparation or in the exam that was made by you and probably, you would like to warn all the other future aspirants from?
एक चीज़ है वेरी पर्टिकुलरली, मैंने NCERT पढ़ना बहुत लेट शुरू किया था, लाइक बहुत लेट. आई रिमेंबर आई शिफ्टेड फोकस टू NCERT maybe 6 months before the exam. Thankfully that proved to be enough, but I do remember there was a phase when I was not able to score as well as I wanted, and I realized later on that that's because I was not paying attention to NCERT. Like the questions where I used to lose, like after my preparation I thought ye exam to matlab I have read everything, I am going to ace that exam, and I did well but not as well as I expected. So that's when I realized it's because I'm not thorough with NCERT, so I shifted focus almost entirely to that. So I still do maintain that reading those the extra material provided in your course is still very useful, but if possible try to give some time daily to reading NCERT, even if it's just half an hour or 1 hour. Just keep in touch with that book slowly, steadily. Don't ignore it completely. That's one thing I wish I'd done when the chapter was being taught. Give some time to reading the NCERT parts of it too. That's one mistake that I thankfully didn't come back to bite me, but yeah, it was a mistake.
Okay, so one thing which I just want to clear with you is, since you are obviously mentioning that, a lot of things that you covered was from your institute's notes and all of that. तो एक चीज़ हमें बताइए, because बहुत सारे learners ये भी पूछते हैं, right, that probably due to financial situations or for any reason as such, if they cannot make it to institutes and they want to self-prepare also. Now that you've already gone through the entire phase and the preparation, क्या लगता है आपको, if someone is unable to attend institutes or coaching centers, is it still possible for them to do well in this exam? क्या लगता है?
If you look at the paper, even the years when the Neet paper was really difficult, still 70 to 80% questions come from NCERT, and in the recent years that percentage has been higher than 80%. So theoretically, yes. I mean, if you read NCERT, that's already like 80% of the paper that's right there hidden somewhere in that book. But I really don't feel I'm in the right position to comment because I didn't try it without that. So I don't fully realize what benefits are there from coaching, but on paper at least it does seem possible. But and today in this age there are so many free online lectures available on YouTube or other websites, so many online learning platforms which provide courses at much more affordable rates than the big corporations. So I would say that from the read NCERT, because if you're not going for coaching, that's the main thing you need to be focusing on all throughout, because you need to be fully thorough with that. Apart from that, there are some online lectures that you can look up which can provide that extra edge which you may need to solve the remaining 10 to 20% of the questions. So I do think it's possible, but well, I didn't do it without that, so I can't really comment for sure.
Chalo, great. I think still your pointers are very good in terms of, covering it with NCERTs, because that is basically where it comes from.
That's the source material.
Probably I think that push which is needed is what your your centers and your units to provide
the
you
competitive atmosphere. The one main thing is the constant mock test. So even if you don't go for coaching anywhere, I would say get a test package from somewhere, or if you have friends from whom you can source those, like maybe those who are in MBBS now or have moved on from that coaching phase of life, if you can source test papers from them, that would definitely be helpful, because test papers is important. I don't see a way around it. So
great. So for all of you who are preparing for NEET, in just like we heard right now, it's not necessary that you need to break a bank to prepare for an exam like this. And also, जैसे कि इन्होंने suggest किया, mock tests also become a super important thing that you should be focusing on, even if you're not going in for a proper coaching to one of the centers. So if you are preparing for NEET and you have still not checked out Unacademy subscription, here's an ad that will play which will give you more information, and you can use the code CTwT to get a 10% extra discount if you want to go ahead, try out the mock tests, or even prepare for your exam. So check it out.
Have you not figured out how to study biology for the pre-medical exams? Well, I have been there in that place, but come out of it to realize that you can enjoy the subject too. And I can show you how you can do the same. Understand the fundamentals and become a master in biology. Over the course of 1.5 years, I have helped over 100 students clear the pre-medical exams. Learn with me and you will be able to score 340 plus in biology. I am Mrinal Kutteri and I teach live for pre-medical exams on Unacademy Plus.
Okay, so Mrinal, now let's get to the main thing, जो I think सारे learners wait कर रहे हैं सुनने के लिए, is the actual subject-wise preparation, right? So we'll take probably your most favorite subject. Which one was it?
that would be physics.
Okay, no doubt you got 180 out of 180, right? I think comment section में I think it was filled with, how did he get that 180? So अब आप ही सबको बता दीजिए, how did you prepare for physics? If you can break it down into what were your exact resources, कितना time आपने उसको दिया, and also if you had to suggest to all the other learners, what are some of the most important topics that you felt were difficult and also had a lot of importance in the paper?
In physics में जो कहूँगा, मैंने जो बात की थी about doing questions of a level higher than NEET, about giving the time to solve questions regularly, सबसे ज़्यादा वो physics को ही apply करती है, क्योंकि that is the most application based, practice based topic among all the 3 subjects which are there in the NEET exam. So physics, this is what I used to do, was solve institute material, and the questions that my lecturers would give in class, those would also normally be from previous year JEE papers. So by solving those, you understand what is the method to approach questions. Like some questions are straightforward. You see the data, one formula which contains that data and has one unknown variable. That's a simple process. But if there are questions that actually require you to apply a concept, that is something that requires practice. I got this practice through my material and through the questions in class. But if you aren't happy with that, or you don't have access to those kind of things, then I would say buy some sort of reference book and start solving. The thing with these is they are difficult. So when you first approach them and you aren't able to solve the questions, you get demotivated, छोड़ देते हो कि मतलब वैसे भी NEET में तो सिर्फ NCERT से ही आएगा. That attitude creeps in. So what I would say is, जब पहली बार ऐसे मुश्किल प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो, जितना हो सके don't approach them from the viewpoint of solving them. Only approach them from the viewpoint of learning. You don't have to keep track of how many questions you were able to solve, कितने हुए, कितने नहीं हुए. And then when you see a score of 2 out of 10 in the end, you don't need to get demotivated. Don't look at that. Don't pay attention to that the first time. Go to the question. If you know how to solve it, great. But if you don't, it's okay. Like shamelessly turn to the answers page, look at the answer, look at the solution more importantly. Because if it's a good book, chances are they'll give the entire detailed solution, as in how they started from a basic law and arrived at the answer by applying that, by using a particular interpretation of that, or by bringing in some more laws here and there. So that kind of ability, it comes through practice. So when you're doing it for the first time, only look at practice. Go to the back, see how they have started, and with time you will develop that sense yourself of which law applies where. At any point you have to start applying some other concept also. This is stuff that comes with practice. So in the beginning, when the chapter is being taught, as far as possible, focus on those difficult questions, because the direct ones you can solve it. It's not a big deal. It's these which are the, you know,
Application
right. And that is where the difference lies between, you know, the, as people say, between the top rankers and the others. So it's about, you know, getting those few, like out of 50 now, out of those 50 questions, if only 5 are like that, those 5 can make a huge difference. So for getting those, I would suggest this. For the others, anyway, NCRT, mock test, whatever you write, that will mostly be sufficient. So for physics, I would say get a reference book and don't worry about whether you can solve it or not the first time. Be patient with yourself, be forgiving with yourself, don't beat yourself up over it. Just look to learn. That's all you have to do in the beginning. Do that and automatically that sense will develop and you'll be able to do properly.
फिर भी, what were the exact books that you would have used?
NCRT first and foremost. Second is institute material, the modules provided, and then they used to have these, you know, books which had simple questions and also high level questions which are more sourced from Olympiads and, you know, JE and all. I had bought a lot of books like H.C. Verma, D.C. Pandey and all, and they had good questions. I solved a couple of chapters in each. They had good questions, but I did not have the time for that. Like, I felt like I was happy with the material I was getting and I was able to get my concepts right there. But if you feel like you're not able to, then buy books like this, and H.C. Verma, D.C. Pandey particularly, they are the ones with the difficult questions. And like that is actually, I think, a standard book for engineering preparation, if I'm not mistaken. So that is what here is where, you know, it's important that you be forgiving with yourself. Just go there, look at the questions. If you can't solve them, no problem. See how to solve them and you will develop that sense. Another book I solved a little, not entirely, was MTG, NCRT at your fingertips. That I solved pretty much completely for biology and chemistry. Physics, again, only a few chapters, and that was because, you know, as I mentioned, in study hours and all in 11th, solving physics was a group activity. So it gave me sufficient practice in 11th and 12th. So I felt like I didn't need to, you know, source a lot of extra material. But if I had not put in that time, then yeah, I would have had to solve other books also maybe to develop that confidence.
Cool. Okay. And जैसे कि questions के लिए तो आपने start में ही बता दिया था. If it's a new topic, you were doing around 25 plus
30,
to
yeah.
30, and अगर वो you're just revising it again, probably 15 to 20, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's what you were doing in physics. So tell us one thing, with physics, especially the part of maths comes into question, because a lot of you know, learners ask, is it possible to clear it with just PCB background? So did you have a maths background? And in case if someone doesn't, the question was just the basic maths jo hota hai, how can they start improving it?
I did not take maths in 11th and 12th. My subjects were physics, chemistry, biology, English and physical education. That was my optional. So the thing is, like in the beginning when physics had just started in 11th and they had just introduced calculus, vectors, all those more mathematical topics, I was starting to feel like maybe I should have taken maths. I remember I'd even bought the 11th class CBSE maths textbook, thinking maybe if I go through that, the relevant topics, obviously, it might help me later on. But the maths which is required for physics, it is something that I feel you can develop if you practice physics enough. There are only a few topics of maths which you need to solve physics. And though, like, you know, like calculus, vectors, things like that, those you can, and to some extent trigonometry, these things you can develop through, through solving physics problems itself. If you solve enough, the required mathematics is already there. But some of my friends who had taken maths, they had told me later on about, you know, how they were having a much more complete sense. Like, for example, in some formula, if you don't understand the integration, how the formula was derived, you just remember the final formula or any important intermediate formula, but they said about how they were able to understand the whole process. So if you take maths, it's definitely helpful and maybe it will make the whole process easier for you, but it is an extra subject. So if you're willing to put in the effort there, then please go ahead, take maths. It's an important subject, it's a useful subject and will help you out in physics. And you know, like the thing is, if you take maths, you are used to solving problems, so that way your speed will improve and you know, you have enough practice that way. So it's useful, but I don't think it's compulsory. That's
cool. So moving on from physics, let's go to probably your lesser favorite subject between chemistry and bio. Which one was it?
My least favorite was this is ironic, but biology.
Okay. Well, what did you score in biology?
I scored full, thankfully.
Okay.
But I usually didn't. Like when I solved mock tests, and more than mock tests, initially when I was solving those fortnightly tests in 11th and 12th, I used to score the least in biology.
Okay.
Unless the physics paper was very difficult, it was a little skewed that way. Apart from that, if it was more or less equal in all subjects, I used to score the least in biology because it was a memory-based subject. There is some level of understanding is involved, obviously, but it is less compared to the other two subjects. And memory that's a sort of my weak point among application and memory. Like I'm better at application than memory. So that is why it was a little difficult in the beginning. I scored decently enough, but not as good as physics and chemistry. So this is where actually that revising NCERT towards the end helped a lot. Like the institute provided material is exhaustive for all topics, and biology is something, because it is memory based, you'll have to revise it very often. So you may find it difficult to go through those that kind of such power-packed material very often. So then towards the end, when I started reading NCERT, the first thing I paid attention to was biology, because NCERT is most important for biology. So once I started doing that, once I started revising regularly, it kind of stabilized. I was able to score well in biology as well. So in more than any other subject in biology, you need to focus on NCERT.
So mainly it was NCERT and your notes that you had from that.
And I had also solved the modules and MTG, NCERT at your fingertips. That again was because it was based on NCERT. So it was kind of to ensure that in this way NCERT ka thoda revision ho jayega kind of thing. So for that I had solved that.
Okay. And as you said that memory based preparation, you were not that good at. You were obviously better with application based subjects, which is like physics. So probably for the others also who have similar problems, what would you suggest? Ki kaise, they can also improve on their memory retention of these kind of chapters and topics and subject?
Here, I mean, I don't really have much to say, but I do think that this is where short notes would come in most handy. So like I remember when I went through that phase of maintaining short notes, I did mostly focus on biology only, and it helped. I was able to remember those better. So if you have that sort of willpower, commitment and dedication to avoid procrastination in the beginning and start maintaining short notes early on, it would be of great help to you, because considering that biology requires so much revision, it is far easier to revise short notes than the entire textbook. So if you can maintain short notes, and another thing about short notes is you can compile what you want, right? So you can take points from NCERT. If you're referring any other reference book, but you feel there are some important points in that, you can note that down. If something was taught extra to you in class, you can note that down. So instead of having to revise from all these different places, you can compile everything in one place and revise that at once, which is a huge advantage. It will save you a lot of time. So if you can do that, it would be great. I think that is in my opinion, that's the most powerful tool you have for anything that's memory based. And also if you feel like you can, have some little post-its in your room or something, that too.
Cool. So I think we are just left with chemistry now. So let's touch upon chemistry. I think because काफी लोगों के लिए inorganic chemistry becomes a pain point, and there are so many formulas to remember and different a lot of things to remember in chemistry too. Memory also, application
right.
also. So it's a good mix of both. So chemistry के लिए आपने क्या किया था? What was your strategy? What were the books you used? And any important topics you want to highlight?
Again, because as you said, chemistry is a mix of application and memory. I used to approach it that way. Like physical and organic chemistry is more application oriented, and inorganic is more memory based. So physical and organic, I studied it much the same way I studied physics. I solved high level questions. I tried to understand the derivation of formulae. I tried to understand the mechanism of the reaction as far as possible, and then moved on to NCERT for the theoretical aspects. Inorganic chemistry works much the same way as biology does. In fact, it's an even tougher nut to crack, I feel, than biology. So it was for inorganic chemistry that I used to maintain those post-its in my room, because that is something which I found most difficult to remember. So I used to note down those orders, stick it up on my wall or something every day when I wake up. It's an eyesore in the morning, to be honest, but still it will help you in the long run. So if you can do that, it's great. So in organic chemistry, same thing. I used to revise it as far as possible, particularly from NCERT. In fact, in inorganic chemistry, I think even if you do just NCERT, that's enough. Like if you feel like you're 100% thorough with NCERT, like every nook and corner of the book that's enough. You don't have to like read from anywhere else, because in organic chemistry the chances are infinitesimal of something coming from outside NCERT. But for physics, for physical and organic chemistry, again, because it's application oriented, do those high level questions. If you want to purchase any reference books and solve that. It will help you develop that same problem solving ability. So that's what I used to do. And the books I followed were much the same like biology, NCERT, the institute provided material, and MTG.
Okay, perfect. And that was across the three sections of chemistry, right?
Yes,
This is what you followed. Perfect. So I think that covers up all our three subjects, and as you mentioned also that this is a very good way of dividing your subjects. So आप खुद के लिए भी decide कर सकते हो whether memory based subjects are your key or strengths, or is it more of application based subjects, because I think you need to make you get better in what you are strong, and also work with the with the subject or the parts that you are weak in. So you need to keep a balance of both. So I think that's all the subjects covered, and let's move on to the next section. Right, so I thought it's a beautiful day, let's step out a little. So I think since हम exams के बारे में ही बात कर रहे थे, I think one point which is left जो बहुत सारे learners ने पूछा भी है, is when you're solving the MCQs, most of the times, especially when you start off, you tend to mark the incorrect answer. So I think answer selection in the MCQ में भी जो ज़्यादा important होता है, more than getting the right one, you need to know when to cross out the wrong ones.
Right.
तो उसके लिए what would you say? What was your strategy? And if you had to teach it to the learners, how would you teach? How do they do it?
As far as MCQs are concerned, I already had some practice. I used to write a couple of Olympiads in school, so I had some practice that way. But the main thing with MCQs is, if they're very straightforward, you read the question, you read the options, you know what's the correct answer, there's no question there. You just go for it, that's it, that's done. But sometimes, actually quite a few times, the questions are framed in such a way that the wording is a little confusing. Sometimes the wording of the options is a little confusing. So there it becomes more important to give time to that question and read the options again and again. This is something you won't get the first time, especially if the key here is to catch where they have twisted a word a little bit differently than what was mentioned in the book. So this is something that develops with time. But for questions like this, one useful thing to do is to eliminate the wrong ones. Like in your question paper, read all the options. If there's something you're definitely sure is wrong, just cross it out and read those two options again. And then you try and remember what was the statement that you had read. Maybe then if you try to remember by yourself, you can check, you can kind of cross check if there's any discrepancy from what you know. You're kind of comparing it with the material in your head kind of thing. So you do that, and then you can, you won't get it right the first time, but with time you'll be able to catch those discrepancies and choose the correct answer. But again, it's something that you will develop with time. You need to be a little patient with that, especially if this is the first time you're solving MCQs. Like if you haven't attempted any Olympiads earlier and this is your first time, that's okay. Be patient with yourself, take your time. First few times you'll definitely get it wrong, I guess, but that's fine. So take time, do the elimination thing. If the questions are difficult, it'll help you save time instead of going through the same options again and again. So eliminate the wrong ones and then kind of compare the statement with your source, with the material in your head. Mostly this problem you will face in those, choose the correct statement, choose the incorrect kind of ones, where the question is designed in a way so as to be confusing. So for that, do this whole elimination thing and compare it. Otherwise, calculation based ones, so you arrive at an answer and you just have to choose the correct one. Confusion mostly arises here. So this is what I used to do.
Cool. So I think done with all the exam things that we have discussed, I think एक part important आ जाता है. Once you're done with all the syllabus, you've done with all the studying, it becomes very important that the last 1 month up to your exam date, also the last 1 week and the last day, these three, I would feel these marks are very important, that आप उस time में क्या कर रहे हो. So if you can just give us a rough idea of 1 month, 1 week and 1 day before the exam, what exactly were you doing? How much were you completely prepared? And obviously 1 week and 1 day पहले तो होगा ही, मगर like how confident were you with this? And what were you doing at that time? And what would you suggest the other learners who are preparing? What should they be doing in these 3 timelines?
For 1 month and 1 week, I didn't have much that was different. I was reading only NCERT, to be honest. Only NCERT. That's the only book you need to be focusing on at that time. that's one thing. And second thing is write tests as far as possible. I remember I was writing almost one test a day, or to be more accurate, 5 tests a week kind of thing. So by doing that, I remember what it did to me was at one point I just hit saturation, and I was like, for how long will I have to keep writing tests? So when finally the NEET exam, the final exam day came around, I was like, for the last 1 month I've been writing tests. How is this day any different than the rest? So that kind of security you will have, in the sense that you will feel like you can't be surprised in the exam. The exam has lost its capability to surprise you, and once you have that kind of a confidence and assuredness in yourself, you'll be able to approach it in a whole different way. Even if you come across a difficult question, you know what's the right way to approach it. You know that you should not lose your calm. These things, if you keep writing mock tests, especially in the 1 month before the exam, it's of great use to you. So I'd say mock tests and NCRT, that's the 2 most important things. 1 week also more or less the same thing. 1 day before, as far as possible, don't touch any book. If there are, like, for example, those order of elements in inorganic chemistry that you find difficult, okay, maybe if you have those post-it notes in your room, go through that, no problem. But apart from that, keep studying to a minimum. A day before the exam is all about stress management. That should be the main thing on your agenda. Do those things which help you relax, which help you calm down, so that the exam isn't always playing on your head, because otherwise you're going into a downward spiral from there on. So I wish I could say I didn't study, but yeah, at one point fear crept in, and it always starts off like this. I'll just read one lesson in the morning, I'll be done by 11 a.m. and after that I'll relax. 11 a.m. became 2 p.m, 2 p.m. became 5 p.m. But at one point my mother put her foot down and said, okay, that's it,
you need to take
you're
a
not
break.
studying anymore. So once, I think around 5 or 6 I stopped. She said, okay, that's it, go do something else. So I played some table tennis with my brother, and after that I went to listen to music, watch some clippings of the shows I like, or whatever, anything to relax yourself, something which is not addictive, but it will help you relax and calm down and get into the right headspace for an exam. So ideally you should be doing nothing the day before the exam, except for those few things which you would have liked to revise one day. Keep that to a minimum, but some things are there which you won't feel secure unless you've read that, but keep that to a minimum. Apart from that, it's all about relaxation. So ideally keep studying to a minimum, but yeah, I know I studied for half the day, so I can't really preach that as such. But yeah, that was the ideal, that's what I was working towards.
Cool. And since you just talked about mock tests, I just want to ask that exactly how soon had you started giving your mock tests, and like what was the kind of scores you usually used to get, and like probably if you could even give a rough average, just like you told before, कि कितने mock tests आपने दिए होगे?
I don't remember a count as such, but like in 11th and the first half of 12th, when chapters are being taught, it's simple. You write 1 test a week or 1 test in 2 weeks. That's it. But when the syllabus is done, you're revising and you're writing full portion tests, you need to increase the frequency. So in between, I must have been writing 1 test every 3 days, maybe 1 test every 4 days, I guess. Towards the end, I was writing a test almost every day. In the last 2 months before the exam, a test a day was my mantra. So writing those tests is important. And in the beginning, I've scored like sub 600 scores also in a couple of mock tests when I hadn't completely revised my syllabus. Later on, I was able to score in the 650s range, but really my scores picked up when I started focusing on NCRT. I mean, the tests were planned in that way. In the beginning, when you're studying, the tests will be based on the material provided to you, but towards the end it'll be more based on NCRT, because that's what you're going to face in the exam. So when that shift occurred, I did not catch it right at the start, so I was still preparing from my notes from the material, and I wasn't able to score as well as I thought. But once I shifted to NCRT, I noticed an increase in my scores. Towards the end, I was averaging 700 plus scores. Towards the end, I'm talking a couple of weeks before the exam. But it's not that I've scored 720 only 2 or 3 times in 2 years. But I was able to score around 700 plus consistently.
Great. So now I think with all of that happened, now you've secured a 720 out of 720. You have a All India rank 1. What's the dream college you're looking out for?
AIIMS New Delhi. I mean, it's a straightforward answer actually, this one.
Anything which really attracts you there, or any of the seniors that you are in touch with from that college?
I am in touch with a couple of seniors from college, but the main thing is, I remember when I started preparing for NEET, The college I had in mind was Armed Forces Medical College, AFMC in Pune, because I wanted to be an army doctor. But I remember, everyone used to work with the sort of this dead set goal of AIIMS New Delhi in mind. And in the beginning, I didn't get it. But later on, actually, what happened was the whole army thing, it kind of subsided a little. And at a point, I just wanted to be a doctor. No matter where, I just want to be a doctor. So then, people used to talk about this college, and you don't see this often actually. Like the top 50 almost by default go to the same college.
Sure.
If you look at JEE and all, it's not like that. They will choose Madras, Bombay, and I mean, I have only a rough idea, but they'll choose different streams, different colleges.
Depending on which college has a better doing that stream that they are interested in for, right?
And sometimes geographical issues also come into play. But for AIIMS New Delhi, I never saw that. It's like top 50 almost by default with 95% surety you can say they're going there. So and then when I got to reading as to why this is the case, I found out that the best lecturers in the country, best professors are there, the kind of research, you get great research opportunities there, the difficult and more complex cases which will give you good exposure as a doctor, all of them mostly come to AIIMS New Delhi. So that's when I realized that, okay, there's a reason why this is the best college in the country. And if I get the opportunity to study there, I drop everything at home and go there. So, and yeah, with this rank, I'm able to go there. So yeah, that's the dream.
Chalo, great. I think there's a lot in store, and I know there are many of you who are watching this right now, jinke liye bhi maybe your dream college is AIIMS Delhi, and we have had a lot of toppers here on the show too, and a lot of them who who regularly come on videos, who are featured in videos from us. So I do know that there's a lot of you who really want to be there, and it's a great place to be by what I've heard from your seniors. So great. So just really wanted to know, this one last thing that I want to touch on, and that is your exam day. So exam day, usually a lot of people have different ways of solving out the question paper. They have different sections that they pick. Aapki strategy kya thi? How did you go through it?
During the exam?
Yes.
During the exam, this is again a very individualistic thing. True. Most people attempt biology first because they want to get done with that as fast as possible and save physics. Save as much time as possible for physics and the calculative parts of chemistry. But I remember there was one particular exam I wrote well in the beginning of 11th, which was a very difficult paper. And I did this. I did biology first, physics last, and I didn't have enough time for physics, maybe an hour, and that paper required a lot more time than an hour. And I quite nearly blanked out. Even later on, I realized there were questions I knew, but I wasn't able to do it properly just because of the time crunch or stress or whatever it is. So from then I decided to approach try a different strategy. I started with physics first, then chemistry, then biology. I attempt biology at the end, and it helped me because physics is something, because it requires thinking, you need a calm state of mind. That mental balance is very important for anything that requires thinking and application, which is mainly physics and parts of chemistry. So I did that first when I didn't still have to worry about time, and I was in a good state of mind. I was fresh. So I attempted physics and chemistry first, and biology, since it's more memory based, you read the question, you read the options. If you know the question, chances are you'll get the options straight away. It's a basic system of recall, really. So and that I was able to do even if there was a little bit of a time crunch. It's a simpler process than physics and chemistry. So I attempted physics first and biology at the end. So that was the way I approached that paper.
How many questions did you did you answer? You remember?
I attempted all.
Everything.
Physics this year was a little lengthy for me, so I remember the first 1 hour I gave almost exclusively to physics, not almost, exclusively to physics. I was done with maybe the section A part. I still had 10 to 15 questions left, and I was like, okay, now you need to move on. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that you may not have time for the other sections if you keep going with this. So I stopped physics there. I moved on to chemistry. Chemistry, I was able to finish fast enough. So if I remember right, after that, I moved on to those questions of physics which I had left. So after chemistry, I did those questions, and I had about 40 minutes, I think, left for biology, which is a little less than I would have liked. But again, biology, because it's a straightforward process,
you either know it or you don't.
Yeah, right. So I read the question. Some questions did require thinking, but the number is less. So within 40 minutes, I was able to manage biology. But I remember I finished the exam on time. So I didn't have much luxury of time
To
towards
look
the end.
around what's happening in the exam hall.
Yeah. Correct.
Well, if you are wondering what actually happens in an exam hall, or you've been wondering how your exam day will end up happening, make sure that you check out the episode on Rewind to Exam Day. Mrinal will also be discussing more about his exam day on that video there, on that episode. So make sure to check it out. We'll add the link to the episode here too. So Mrinal, I think that almost sums up the entire preparation journey of yours. Now I want to look at the brighter future. Tell me that, I know you want to become a doctor, but is there anything in particular, any stream or anything in research that is really attracting you, you want to, proceed with it in the future?
Research is something that I'll think about later. Like as I dive deeper into the subject, maybe there'll be some topics that I discover which I'm really interested and passionate about. So maybe then I might look at research. But at present, I don't have any plans like that. The idea right now is to become a surgeon. In TV shows that appears to be the coolest part of medicine. So right now that's the thought, but that's very malleable. That might change later.
Cool. So I think that pretty much sums up everything with exams and studies and preparation. So I think we just have one part which is more of our fun section, which is called our rapid fire section, where I'm just going to ask you 4-5 questions, and I don't want you to think too much and give me just a one word or a one line. Okay. I know you're very good with in-depth answers. I want it to be very short.
Yeah.
I did get to know that you enjoy watching web series a lot.
Yeah.
So tell me the name of probably the last 3 series that you've watched.
Like before the exam or?
Whenever.
Okay, The Office US, How I Met Your Mother, and House.
Okay. And if I had to say, if there was anything that was a takeaway for you from these 3 series, what was it?
You can find beauty in normal common life also. The Office and How I Met Your Mother, very simple, based on real life, but there's still beauty in them. There's a lot of interesting things to do.
Cool. So I think another thing is, a lot of people have always, I've seen there's a lot of comments online right now saying that, you're lying, that 4 hours is the only thing you were studying.
Yeah.
So I just want you to tell it on camera that, this is what you really did. 4 hours did actually happen.
It is what I really did, believe it if you want, but yeah, that was the process. It's the only thing I can do. I need the balance of both.
Cool. So if if you were, like, say if I had to place you in a pack of crayons and you had to pick one color that describes or resonates most with you, what would be that one color and why?
I guess black.
Wow. Why?
In general, I'm a bit of a pessimist actually. That's
Okay.
why. And also I like the shade black. So.
All right, cool. So I think one last thing that I would like to ask you is, now that you're going forward, and you are looking forward to join AIIMS Delhi. So if I was to ask you that, anyone from the past or even in the current who you really look up to, or you would really like to sit down, have a chat with, an ex-doctor, someone who's been there or who's already practicing or is still preparing, in college, anyone like that?
Not really. I mean, I've derived much of my inspiration from fictional characters actually.
Okay, like?
Not a great role model, but Gregory House from the show House. Not as a person, but as a doctor, definitely.
Okay. And what's that one thing which you like the most?
He has a great medical mind, first of all. Secondly, he approaches it as a puzzle with almost complete objectivity. And while a lack of empathy is not good as a doctor, and that I feel is not a problem I suffer from, the approach he has to solving medical cases is amazing. It really inspired me. So for that purpose mainly.
Cool. So if I was just to ask you, who is the biggest motivation in your family or friend circle for you, who would it be?
Don't have a particular person, but I guess mostly my parents.
Okay. Yeah. And if I was to just ask you that, if I was to make you probably go inside a time machine and go back to any one year in history or in the future, where would you want to go and why?
I guess pre-British period, any time before that.
Okay.
Because people always talk about how that's a very different time from now. So I just like to see firsthand what it was like then.
Cool. So I think those are all my questions for the rapid fire, and I think kudos, it shows why he's rank 1. Done very well. I think thank you so much, Mrinal, for giving all the time that you gave today. And I think it's definitely all the pointers that you have shared, all that knowledge that you've shared is going to be very helpful for all our learners. And I thank you on behalf of all the learners and our aspirants who are preparing for this exam. And before we just about end this, I would like or request you to give one message out to all the learners and aspirants for their preparation, or anything that you would want to tell them, your message to the learners.
Most important thing I feel is you need to have complete 100% faith in yourself right from day one. You need to believe that you can do it. Maybe the road is rocky, full of thorns, those metaphors. If that is the case, you have the ability, you have the patience to see this through and get what you want. So most importantly, have faith in yourself, be forgiving, be patient, and it will definitely bring you results.
Well, that's a message that is so inspiring, and I hope you all were taking notes. So Mrinal, thank you so much once again for your message, and also for giving. Always a pleasure for us and our team of CTwT. Just one last thing, जो हमारी यहाँ पे प्रथा है, actually like a ritual, which is tag a friend. So just like you came in on the show today, shared your experiences, journey and preparation, we would like you to tag some other friend who's cleared probably this exam or some other exam that you would like to tag, and we would also invite them over to our show and let them also share their thoughts. Who would you like to tag?
I would like to tag Nikhar Bansal, who also cleared Neet UG 2021 with an All India rank 5.
Perfect. So Nikhar, we are looking forward to meet you also on our show here on CTwT. So our team बहुत जल्द आपको भी contact करेगी. So stay tuned. And Mrinal, I think for all the time that you've given us here, we have a small gift from our team here. Thank you so much, Abhishek. So this is something small for you. I hope you have a sweet tooth.
I do, very much so. Thank
Great.
you so much.
So this is for your time here, and also for everyone who's watching. I know आप लोगों ने बहुत सारे questions हमें भेजे थे. So if you felt that your question might not have been picked, that you posted on the community, stay tuned, because on Unfiltered Opinions there is all those questions being covered too. Again, we'll be adding the link to the video too. So make sure you check that out too. So that's all for today now. Mrinal, had a great time meeting you today.
Likewise.
And I wish you all the very best
Thank
for
you.
your future.
Thank you.
I'm hoping to see you doing a lot of fun stuff in AIIMS.
Hopefully, that's what I'm waiting for really. So.
Cool. So looking forward to that. Thanks, Mrinal.
Thank you.
That's all
Thank
for
you.
today, guys. All the very best for your preparation, and if you are attempting the NEET in 2021, I'm sure that you'll be able to do it. Just keep on with that motivation. And just one thing that I really started off this episode with was the importance of a learning that a racetrack can even give you. Here are some learnings. जब आप prepare करते हो, there is so many distractions, so many challenges all around you. That's exactly like a racetrack. But every challenge and every distraction is like that one competitor in front of you. You need to just keep yourself focused and look at that one in front of you and keep, basically taking over that one difficulty one at a time. And that's how you finally reach the end. So don't give up. Keep practicing. Keep, preparing for your exams, and whatever is your dream, I'm sure you'll be able to achieve it together. With our team of CTwT, we wish you all the very best. Let's crack it.